You're muted.
Holy crowded. Need more seats in here.
Yeah,
You do.
bleachers in here.
Bleachers,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Bleachers for the police board meeting.
Sorry, a little bit unscheduled.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Are you ready?
I'm good.
All right, okay.
We'll talk lacrosse later.
Yeah, we will.
Okay, I will call to order this New Westminster Police Board meeting for Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. In New Westminster, we start our meetings by recognizing and respecting the New Westminsters on the unceded and surrendered land of the Halkomelem speaking peoples. We acknowledge that colonialism has made invisible their histories and their connections to this land. And as a city, we're learning and building relationships with people whose lands we're on. We will start with an adoption of the open agenda.
So moved.
Moved, seconded. Any comments, questions? All in favor, all opposed, carried. And then Police Officer Commission, Chief Constable Jensen.
Thanks, Mayor.
Is this why the crowd's in the room?
As much as Amy probably wishes it was, I don't think so. but
Okay.
maybe partially. Thanks, Mayor and Board. So it's my honor today to be recognizing Inspector Ward. So in early 2016, the British Columbia government passed legislation finalizing the criteria that established the Police Officers Commission. This recognition is a provincial honor that recognizes high caliber senior members of municipal police departments for their professionalism and dedication to policing in British Columbia. The use of the designation commission is a tradition borrowed from the military to denote senior members of the service. To earn your commission, you must achieve a minimum rank designation along with several other criteria. In British Columbia, officers who earn the rank of inspector or above are eligible to be considered to be commissioned officers. The legislation permitted the Lieutenant Governor to appoint persons to be officers and authorize the issue of a commission under the Great Seal to be an officer. This honor recognizes the outstanding leadership and dedication of Inspector Ward and reflects his ongoing commitment to the highest level of service to British Columbians. Eamon, it's my honor to present to you and the mayor. You will come with me, or you can come down here, please. Present to you your commission as a commissioned officer in the British Province of British Columbia.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. It took a little while for us to get this all sorted out, but thanks, Eamon.
You know, I remember that in the way.
Do we have to vote on that?
No, it's
Okay.
Lieutenant Governor outranked you.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And 1.4 is Alexa Awards presentation.
All right.
That's why everybody's here.
That's why everyone's
That's why
here.
they're here.
All right.
Not me.
Let me get my speaking notes for that one. Sorry. Stand by. Class 16, here we go. Paul, can I get you there? So where are our four amazing individuals here? Three. So we did this, I think, about a year ago, because I think some of the faces look very familiar. But we're going to be recognizing some officers from New Westminster that made the Alexa team. So some of you may know what the Alexa team is, but just for the purposes of those that don't know, or those that might be watching online, the Alexis team is named in honor of 4-year-old Alexa Midlar, who was killed by an impaired driver in Delta in 2008. Alexa's team pays tribute to the dedicated RCMP and municipal police officers who make an extraordinary contribution to reducing the number of drivers affected by alcohol or drugs on British Columbia roads and highways. Impaired driving is a completely preventable crime, and yet we see on a regular basis people continue to be killed and injured by it every day. By taking impaired drivers off the roads, these and hundreds of other officers who are part of Alexa's team are helping to prevent these tragic deaths and injuries and are making our roads and communities safer for everyone. So Alexa's team there's two levels of Alexa's team. So there's the Alexa Award, which recognizes officers who obtained between 24 and 50 points, they call it points. So that would be individuals that these officers have taken off the road either through a 90-day IRP fail or refuse, through administrative driving prohibitions, through immediate roadside prohibition warnings, and also through report to Crown Councils for criminal code impaired investigations. So there would have been 3, but there's 3 of our officers today that are going to be getting the award, the Alexa award that, as I said, is between 24 and 50 points. Constable Camo Malcolm is not here today. He obtained 27 points. Constable Brendan Vogt obtained 24 points. Sorry, I'm just trying to read all these things that he did. So he had 24, and then Constable Brad Wardner also had 24. So they'll be receiving the Alexa award today. So I'll get down right here. Thank you very much. Yeah. Congratulations, buddy. That's awesome. You want to? We'll do one again with everybody. And then there is a All-Star Award. They call it the All-Star Alexa Award. And to be considered for this award, the member has to obtain more than 51 points. Constable Chris Ferris received 60 points. He submitted 3 report to Crown Councils for criminal code impaired, 31 90-day IRP fail or refusals, 2 administrative drive prohibitions, and 24 IRP ones. So Chris has made the All-Star. Awesome. Yeah, maybe Mary, want to come on up and we'll get a group photo here. I don't know how you want to do this. Yeah.
It's like Oprah, and you get a TV, and you get a TV, and you get a
Maybe or something.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea. We'll do 2 photos, so one with. All right, big smile. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Actually, I know you're one of those guys.
And civilian presentations from Finance Admin and IT. Did you want to
Yeah.
speak to this?
Maybe I'll really quickly and then are you gonna go for it, Chuck? Okay. As the board raised, actually, I think this was a board initiative. There had been some talk about the fact that the board has historically gone out on ride-alongs with mainly our patrol division members, but there was a desire from the board to also get to know our civilian staff, some of the other units that maybe traditionally board members haven't gone on ride-alongs. So we kind of thought about a bunch of different ways, and the group came up with doing some presentations to the board where the staff or some of the staff from the different units will be present, and they'll do a presentation on what work they do. So with this is the first one, and I'll turn it over to a familiar face of the board, Jacqueline.
Yes, I thought that I would do everyone a favor and break the ice. Much to my dismay.
You do a lot more presenting than that.
So. Now, we'll have to be able to see it online and we'll, other people zoom in.
Have seats. You can roll them around.
Okay. All right, so the Finance and Administration Department is here to do our civilian presentation. So before I get started, I really wanted to thank the board and the SNG for allowing us to come here. I think this is a really good opportunity for civilian staff to sort of come and meet some faces and have an opportunity to share what they do and really just get to know everybody. So I have a really quick agenda. We're just going to do a team overview. And then we're going to break out into we kind of grouped what we do into similar categories. I think probably everybody knows finance and admin sometimes kind of gets a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't really relate to finance or admin, but we kind of try to break it into buckets so that everybody would have an opportunity to speak today. Once we go through that, we'll do some achievements and challenges, and then have a quick period for questions. So, starting off with myself, I think I know most of the people in this room, but in case there's anybody watching online, my name is Jacqueline Darren, and I'm the manager of financial services for the police department. I've been here for about 3 years. Okay, so then I will pass on to Kathy to introduce you.
I'm Kathy Duranzio. I'm the administrative assistant for the NWPD, and I've been here for 20 years. Long time.
And I'm Christina Matchak, finance coordinator, and I think this is my 7th year now.
My name is Maya, and I'm here clerk 3, and I'm just here for 1 year.
Okay, so I will jump right into it. So the area I decided that I would speak to is probably the area that the board is most familiar discussing with me, and that's sort of budget and forecast. So as you guys know, I help organize the budget every year. We do the operating and the capital budget. This area is something that you guys are very familiar with. We work a lot with the city, we work a lot with you, we review contracts, we talk about operational requirements. We go through all sorts of things that we need to get the budget up and running and out to the public. So we also do quite a bit of monthly forecasting. We take a look at where we're trending, we make adjustments, and we watch where our financials are sitting to make sure that we can hit our targets for the year. So why is this important? The one I put at the top is really resource allocation. Keeping accurate finances helps us determine where do we need to spend money? Where are we going? How did we trend last year? What's new in policing, and where do we need to allocate our resources? As well as transparency. It's really important to have transparent financial statements. All of our financial discussions are right open. So we work together on transparency, and accountability is sort of on the same leaf there, and operational efficiencies. We're always looking for ways to reduce costs. We're analyzing where we could do better, contract analysis, working with the city on different vendors. So operational efficiency, and then being adaptable. So I think the forecasting is one piece where we've really made some strides. We're really working with groups to map out our spending for the year and then track it accordingly. How are we doing? Where do we need to adjust? Can we apply different things to different areas?
I'm not as fluent as Jacqueline, so I'm sorry. I'm going to have to kind of read.
Quite all right.
We're not
Like I
fluent
said,
either.
I'm the administrative assistant with the NWPD, and like my title suggests, I deal with a sizable portion of the HR administration, following for documentation and updating systems for new hires, creating documentation for status changes, longer term leaves, and I'm looking at the completeness and accuracy for both documents and systems. I maintain confidential personnel files and people's service records throughout their career. And I'm currently working on transitioning my documentation from my current system into a new HRIS system. And we're also looking at fleshing out the new HRIS system in order to automate some of the tasks. I track various statistics, for example, sick time, work safe time loss, QB sick claims, and I ensure compliance with a number of, with multiple contracts and letters of agreement. I verify staff schedules and overtime. I transfer data from the payroll system into the payroll system from our scheduler, and I make certain that everybody's adhering to the contract and everybody has appropriate approval. So in 2023, our regular salaries for approximately 221 staff came in at around $22 million. And we processed approximately 2,500 overtime sheets, accounting for more than $2 million in overtime. I also administer our scheduling system, and I'm responsible for making it work for our needs and keeping it current. So why does this matter? Well, staff depend on their salary and overtime to be accurate and timely, and they plan their lives around that, so we don't want to mess with that. Finance needs us to be accurate, so they can identify trends. We also, staff not only want their salaries to be accurate, but they want their leave banks to be properly reflected. Finance also needs to know which salaries and what overtime they can recover, and they also need to be able to track the cost of various projects. And accurate information, accurate data improves the financial forecasting, so.
Okay, one of my responsibilities is to work on our recoveries and billings. So we have roughly anywhere between 32 and 25 seconded members and things such as URSU, CFSU, IHIT. So we bill back to those agencies. So like Kathy says, she enters their salaries into a system. I can pull that part out quite flawlessly. It's not as, but so then we track the overtime. And that's a very manually driven process. It's last year we had about 1,200 overtime sheets for seconded, which totals about $1.2 or $3 million. And it's all manually tracked. Kathy literally enters it, slides it over to my desk, we track it, and then we have to reconcile it in an OT format to make sure we're not missing any, as they're big numbers, and it's literally line by line for 1,200 OT sheets. So it's quite the process. We also track their leave balances, so their vacations, their statutory holidays, the overtime. If they use something that they've collected the new SPD, of course, we owe them money. If they've earned it while they're there, they owe us. So it's a bit of a who's accountable for what leave balances. We then create the invoice, send it out to them, and I apply the payment when we get it and see who still needs to be tracked. So that's about $6.2 million of our budget that brings us in. Then on top of that, we also have special events, movies, parades, yeah, lots of different grants, recoveries. Last year, I think in 2020, or in the last 12 months, I think it's about 800,000 extra in the village that we've done with all our special events. And it's always changing, very fluid. Right. Reconciliations, to make sure we haven't missed anything, because they are big numbers, and why would we want to pay for something that we can get back? Funding, so yeah, a lot of through grants and organizations, we want to, well, Gelderman is gone, but there's a lot of people that are helping out to make sure that we aren't leaving anything on the table. So it's important part. Financial reporting, ensure monthly, quarterly, annual payments are accurate and match expenses. Again, just for accuracy, because it's so manually driven, it's very easy to miss something. So that's important. Transparency, yeah. So everyone, if an agency wants to know exactly what's gone wrong or if something's not matching up, we can work on that. I think we're working really well with the agencies now. It's before everyone was kind of in their own silos, and the seconded agencies are seeming to reach out and they want to have good relationships and keep those lines open, which is helpful moving forward.
That's me. So one of my duties is accounts payable, and just to explain what it means, it's invoice processing, looking for the right approvals, and then communicate with vendors regarding invoice discrepancies, to reconcile vendor statements, and to make sure that costs are posted to correct accounts. And on 2023, we processed over 1,500 invoices with total value 6.5 million. And so we have 4 highlights why this is important. So compliance with accounting standards and policies. Then accurate accounts payable will result in correct financial reporting, including historical trend analysis, and then make sure that approvals are legit and proper, and also to maintain a positive relationship with vendors.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. So then there was just, there's a whole bunch of other things that we didn't really fell into a box. So there's more than are probably on here. These are just some highlights. So the team does a lot of work with policy. not so much writing the policy, but making sure we're reviewing when it's due, it's up to date, they're working back and forth with the staff members that need to update the policy. Notebooks, the team oversees notebooks, and when staff members retire or leave the organization, we make sure they're stored and tracked so they're accessible for later years. All sorts of reporting comes out of this group. It could be anything from StatCan to VAU reporting to things SMT are looking for, things the board is looking for, stuff the province wants, all sorts of reporting. And then in the other category, things like help with minor building work, security clearances, false alarms, and many other little things that come up on the day-to-day. So one of the things we wanted to touch on was just some of the challenges that we have on our day-to-day, so that you guys are aware of some of the things that we face. And I think would be no surprise out of some of the comments from the team is that there are some really manual processes that we have. So a lot of the systems are integrated. We have systems that work with the city systems and vice versa, but there is a lot of manual tracking and verification. Staffing changes, this is really just the nature of policing. I've seen it in other organizations at the school district. It was very similar. There's a lot of movement among staff coming up and down and amongst positions. So there's a lot of training that goes into new staff members.
Yeah, it creates a lot of work when you're moving people and onboarding their new files, taking off their old files, moving your invoicing around. It
Can be different than say, an organization where someone is hired at this position and they stay there for 20 or 30 years. So one of the other ones we highlighted was just obtaining approval. Sometimes there can be delays. There's a lot of different people involved between our department and the city and back and forth. And then as well as technology, we just highlighted that we don't, everything is mostly manually approvals. We don't have an electronic approval system, and we're still working towards some communications. We'll get that one out of the way and we'll talk about it. So things that we feel that, have been achievements over the last couple of years, we've really moved to a paperless environment. Just a couple of years ago, everything was very paper. We still walked all the invoices up to the city.
Had the stamp pad and
Every
GL.
We work towards paperless stuff. The HRIS system that Kathy spoke to is a big win that we're working through at the department. We commented on staffing for our department the last couple of years has been quite influx. We had Daisy retired. She's been here for 30 years. Then I left for 8 months. We hired Maya. There was a lot of back and forth. So we now have a full complement of staff. So we're really starting to look for some forward thinking things that we can do rather than just make it keep your heads up. The process improvements, we've really improved our reconciliation process on the OT and some verification there and some new forecasting methods. And then other things that were real big successes for the group was the remote work policy. I think everyone's really working through that, and the team is really appreciative of that. And working with the city staff to find efficiencies. We've been doing a lot of work with city finance and just finding ways that we can reduce redundancy and duplication and keep the lines of communication open there. So that is everything. Questions?
Mary.
Thank you for that. That was really great to hear about that side of it because it's kind of all we see is Jacqueline. So I know there's other people. So it's great to know. Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of questions. You didn't talk about IT. I'm assuming that's not in your department. This is IT?
Yeah.
We won't say anything bad about them. So thank you. And then the other question was, you said that you have to get a lot of approvals from the city for things. And I just wanted to understand what would those things be that you would have to get approvals? Like, what does that look like? Oh. Why do we have to get approval? I guess is what I'm really asking.
The majority of the approvals will be through HR staff, approving paths, getting the work that we've done here sort of up there and quick. I think that, yeah.
I'd say using their HR system, their HR has been, as everyone knows, an issue. So having our own HR here, there will probably be a lot less approvals that will have to go up to the city.
Do you mean approvals for like someone changing
So
a
for example,
role or?
someone has an acting role, we do the paperwork, it's approved here, but then it needs to get approved
The
by
HR
someone
at
there.
the city also has to
So-
approve it before payroll.
There can be
process.
some redundancy
Oh.
there.
Do you have to do approvals for purchasing with the city?
If we don't use their PO system, we have created our own internal PO system so that we can track how we've done the purchase and stuff. If we're doing something large where we need to go to BC bid or we
Yeah,
need to do
yeah.
a procurement process, then I'll engage with Patrick and his team
Got it.
to go through that, but we don't use their PO system.
Okay, and then the last thing is you talked a lot about manual, doing a lot of manual things. Is there on a wish list something for some automation of some things?
In the past, we have looked at integrating the scheduler system with, so right now the schedule system goes into our payroll system, and then the payroll system goes into our ERP system. So
It's all
there's
manually.
there's-
entered. It's
there's
not-
three-
It doesn't go.
3 separate systems.
Okay,
I know I believe the city is reviewing some of their systems as well. I think at one point about 4 years ago, we did look at integrating our scheduler with our payroll system, and it was just cost prohibitive. It was quite expensive and not guaranteed to give us what we wanted in the end anyways.
thank you.
Anyone else?
Mary covered off what I had.
Yeah, I actually had questions about like how much interaction you actually have with the city around the work, like how much of your work relies on them, how much of, like, so, not much like Mary asked, like, you have your own PO, your own purchase system. If it's below a certain threshold, you can do that, but if it involves BC bid or something like that, you need them. Do you have your own bank account? Like literally, everything you pay, you set it up to the city and the city pays it on your behalf.
Yes.
So so that obviously involves a transaction and some sort of communication.
Yeah.
Um,
So we've made it quite a bit of strides in that in integration, but the bank accounts are all the same.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's probably this is something that people don't realize about, and again, we talk about it every year at budget time, how the police budget is a line item. But a lot of this work, a lot of this administrative work isn't counted in engineering's line items in their budget or in parks, because that's done by the administrative staff, by general government staff.
Yeah.
The city we're here, we actually have a bunch of work we have to do that's somewhat separate. Yeah.
Exactly.
Tell me about those notebooks. Police officers are still writing down things by hand in a notebook, and do they upload that to some sort of, well, I'm gonna say, do you upload that to digital? Is the officer's responsibility? It just stays in a paper written note
For how long?
Forever.
forever?
Do we have like a massive notebook storage space somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of
Yeah.
bins, lots of bins.
So- And so, and how responsible are you for them, and how responsible, like, I'm thinking about, we just had an inspector retire after 25 years. Has he got sitting on 25 years of notebooks that you now have to process, or do they go to you every once a year, or how does this?
So members responsible until they retire.
And then once they retire, it becomes your
It's not
responsibility.
our property.
And is that information indexed in some way?
Yeah, and in Excel, their name, how many, their dates,
Their
and their PIN
dates.
number,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
their
but
and their
I-
box number.
The question, yeah, the information in there is indexed in some way, so if I look back at, I don't know, again, I know so little about how your systems work, but if I'm looking back at case number 455, is it indexed a little bit?
Not like that, no.
Not like
They would
that.
have to go, I don't know, probably to Prime and look up the date range.
do it by
and then they would
dates?
pull the
The
date range.
notebooks are
Yeah.
dated,
Okay,
so the first entry and the last entry.
Yeah. and so you basically identify what officer worked on that and on what dates, then you would go back into that archive and pull the notebooks and go through them and see. Yeah, interesting.
So you can imagine how many you mentioned, Trevor. I'm just starting to compile mine, and there's a lot of notebooks. So
But it's been a long time since you did anything that you had to write down.
yeah. So anything of that. But it's a lot, and that's a lot of storage. There are organizations that are starting to look at electronic note taking.
Yeah.
We're not quite there yet. Prime Core looks after all of our data electronically when it comes to files. It's probably going to jump on board with that at some stage, and that obviously will save a lot of that. But right now, it's just paper and pen.
Wow. Okay.
The things. you
Any
find
other
out.
questions or comments? I can't see Patrick online because my, okay, just put your hand up if you do have a question, but,
I have one just like,
yeah, go ahead.
so the HR manager position that's coming on, will this address some of the approval issues with the city?
Sorry, I won't put Jack on the spot. I think the board knows, and we've talked about it, some of the frustrations on our end, because and I'm sure the city feels frustrated too. So what I'm hopeful for, and it'll be really for this group to then implement, because that individual won't be here until retired. But hopefully we'll be able to build up that relationship, that when that individual or we approve it, that will be taken on face value. But I recognize, as much as I get frustrated sometimes, I recognize the city's got their own process. So they can't just take Dave Jansen's word for it, because they have their own processes, right? So it's frustrating because we are separate and the board makes decisions and then we've got to go, but they also have their processes. So hopefully that'll.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks
Stick
very
around
much.
and find out what these IT guys do.
Ryan, are you,
All right.
All right. We're gonna skedaddle and get our.
You got work to do. Thank you, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
got some manual inputting to do, yeah. The notebooks to.
I can't believe I don't know.
It makes sense. But we're doing engineering too, right?
That's why I switched to this, I write messy and big, and I used to always have a paper notebook.
Yeah, no.
And I had like a box under my desk at work, so now it's all here.
We have boxes and like I have a couple boxes in the.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're doing engineering too. I've got notebooks from where I work, but I have to go on forever
Yeah.
because there's a lawsuit in like 20 years.
Like this is my messy writing, and I do it in OneNote, and I can search and it can recognize my, yeah.
Like in healthcare, you have your
So.
chart, but your notes are just.
they're trying to read out your number of notes. It's like, I don't know what this
Any of
is.
your
And
notes you
they,
hate
they
drinking.
retired.
And they're gone, yeah.
We've got to go to
Shred
a
it.
trial.
But people are much better about
But it's more about
putting
just
together
indexing.
now.
Like it's okay if they're reading
There's
paper,
more
but how do you?
information in
Yeah,
there.
we're
Having an index, like what's the index? Like, it's
Okay.
like the library, it's almost.
That's everything.
Yeah, we
is
still
in
made
the
it. You've got.
And the report would be, because the system we
Here,
have only allowed
Oh, like a certain, yeah.
characters, so everything was abbreviated and in like 3 sentences.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we're having IT,
All
hello.
right, so, yes, so the IT team is here. Apologies in advance, we are in IT, so we are a little bit introverted, so this is not a comfortable situation for us, but we'll make do. We'll see what we can do here, so yeah, IT at the New West Police Department, so again, I don't wanna pigeonhole or stereotype us, but, we are logical thinkers, so. I kind of thought about how can we explain the story of IT, so, for me, I just went with the 5 W's. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. So, who is IT? What do we do? When is IT needed? Where are we located? Why does it matter to policing, which is obviously one of the more important things? How do we do it? And then any questions about IT at the end. So hopefully, this can explain everything that we do, or at least a broad general overview, and we can answer any questions you can have. So who is IT? This is the IT team here. There's 4 of us. Myself, I'm Brian San. I'm the IT supervisor. I have been here since 2015.
My name is Carlo Pais. I'm a user support specialist. This is probably the longest company I've ever worked for. Is 10 years. I came from a school district, which totally IT is kind of operated in a different manner than what I was used to coming into this environment. But I really like working here, and I like dealing with all the police officers in the different departments.
Hi, I'm Kenny Fung. I'm the network coordinator, and I've been here for 22 years now. And I'm basically responsible for everything for every IT thing that you don't see. So not the computer on your desk, not the printers, but everything behind the scenes.
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm IT system support specialist, and I've been here just over 2 years.
All right, so that being said, what do we do? So if you could all take 5 minutes to read all this stuff. Okay, so, obviously, IT is kind of a big bucket, but just some of the things that we try and split our responsibilities, up and down. Myself as a supervisor, I am responsible, for the leadership portion, the scheduling, the approvals, that kind of thing. I work very closely with finance on our budgets. I ask a lot, they ask a lot of us, so, there's a lot of push-pull there, which is good. Any escalations when major things happen, when the proverbial excrement hits the fan, try to be there. I am in charge of communications, specifically more with, senior management, hopefully the police board as well, so I'm kind of that liaison. We do our own procurement as well, and we manage our vendors as well, so I'm responsible for that. And any projects that come out of that, any initiatives that are born out of the capital expenditure or anything that IT needs, the project management in-house. And somehow I became responsible for mobile phones as well. That I'm the mobile phones person. So that being said, I'll pass on to Kenny to give you a little bit of an idea of what he does again. I think the general idea where he's responsible for everything behind the scenes is pretty accurate, but it's go ahead.
Yeah, so as you can see on the board, basically it's all the systems behind the systems, which actually encompasses quite a bit because there's the networking, there's the servers that you log into, the storage where you put your things, email, databases, firewalls. Yeah, it's pretty much it. I'm the one that's responsible for spending the probably $2 million worth of stuff that you don't see.
Yeah, he asked me for the money, then I asked him.
Yeah, and we started off as a small shop. When I started here, we literally had one server, which acted as your login server, your file storage, and your email. And then, eventually we've grown. I think we're up to about 45 servers, and the number of computers have expanded from around 30 to about 180. Storage. Yeah, and the storage is basically blown up, especially with the advent of digital evidence, digital photos and videos is the big one. Fortunately for us, some of that is moving to the cloud with our digital evidence management system. So our growth is tempered a little bit more because of that. But we are always constantly striving to be, more resilient, more more uptime than in the past. And so as a result, many of our systems now are run in dual. So we'll have 2 sets of servers, 2 firewalls, 2 sets of switches so that we can power cycle some of them without a noticeable impact on any sort of system outage. Yeah, so that basically is cost double. So yeah, we're continuing to build on that.
Cool. My role as I'm gonna compare it to the guys in World War I that were on the front line there, where Tim and I are kind of like the first line of support. We deal with just about anything, whether it's software or hardware related. We're also responsible for the equipment that's in the police cars, like the laptops, the printers, the card scanners. So if anything goes wrong, or even if there's something going on with the GPS and whatnot, we're also support people with software, various software. Kind of funny though, sometimes everybody thinks we're experts on everything, and that's not necessarily the case, because sometimes we'll be throwing software where it's kind of like we're first laying our eyes on it. But because anybody that's been in IT and has worked with software a lot in the past, usually you can draw on your skills from other applications and programs and troubleshoot stuff. They're probably a lot quicker than most people. We also do desk phones. And the voice, one recent thing is our voicemail mailbox directory, which has never really worked the way that I'd like to envision it, in terms of where you could call in and look up a staff member and get in touch with it, but that's been rectified. And other than that, we're kind of like, or my job's kind of like all over the place. And then at times I feel like I have to, I'll help out Ryan, for example. He mentioned the phones, smartphones. there's times where if he's on vacation or something, we'll kind of take over for that. Or kind of help out Kenny in his role at times when needed. And we're kind of like, we just do a little bit of everything, right? And yeah, and I enjoy the work, especially from the environment that I came into, which was more of, you were kind of siloed. The good thing about in IT here is you get to branch out and go into so many different areas. So every day is not like a routine. It's not something that's boring. It's something that's a challenge, everything, and it's interesting. It's probably it's one of the reasons that keeps me here as long as I've been here.
20 years?
10.
We're pretty much close, work with Carlo, doing some more, everything you see in the front, it's user support. We also did deployment for our new Windows 10 operating system. So all the Windows 7 was upgraded to Windows 10, and that's something, example that we do support for all the workstation deployment, including laptop, tablets, and also everything, I guess, related to operational, make sure everything gets connected, the communications side, emails, of course, and also access. When we hire new staff, we manage the building paths, we manage the security, and also network shares, depends on where their units are. So we give access to the specific unit share folders and files, and also we, just like Carlo mentioned, if one of us are away, then we share the responsibility as well, the level 2 or 3.
Yeah, for sure. I think we all kind of back each other up on these responsibilities. It's not really a silo. Again, I kind of say main responsibilities because that's kind of what's in our job description, but the reality is an everyday work. You know, Kenny might be busy on a project, or he might be you know, going out to the cars or at desk stuff. So if somebody comes up to me and asks me for account access or something like that, I can do that. We're there to help, right? So that's kind of our our main focus is to help all employees and compete with any so, well, that's the what's. So I think that gives a pretty good idea of when is IT needed. So we cover all the technology used at NWPD and more, and we support all the internal staff here. So it's a big list here.
But it's not comprehensive.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's comprehensive, but just to give you an idea of kind of all the things that are covered. As Carlo mentioned, there's no real typical everyday thing. It's not like every day we have, okay, we check to see if there's accounts, and we check to see if there's problems with email, or we go up to the cars to check to see if there's issues there. It kind of, every day is different. Something could go down. We could be working on different projects. We could have projects come in from external sources. You see those big TVs there. So that grant obviously came in for street crime. So they approached us and said, can we get your guys' help purchasing these things? And I said, okay, how much time do we have? Oh, we need it next week. Okay. Okay. So, you never know what's going to come across your desk. There's everyday things like that. And I'll maybe let these guys get into some of those examples, but even at a high level, sometimes Kenny touched on it a little bit. We're trying to follow a strategy to kind of mitigate some of these things so that we're not managing everything on site and having to get our hands in all the time. There's IT is kind of trending towards cloud and managed services. And again, hopefully that takes us away from those large capital expenditures, brings us more into operational budgeting forward, paying for a service or a subscription. So the big one we're working on right now is Office 365. I know a lot of people know about that. We're traditionally on-premise Office and Exchange here. We keep our mailboxes here, but I think we're at the point where we're ready to move into the cloud for that, right? That'll help ease some of the resourcing, not only in our service or service centers here, but also on our staff, right? On our yeah, maybe you guys can give some examples. When is IT needed?
Mine is IT not needed. You just want to give me an example of,
Yeah, if you can just, you know, give some examples of what can happen in a day for you.
I can give you some examples.
Sure.
So I know that as a restaurant, when you guys have sometimes issues in the community, IT comes to the restaurant and they extract information. And yes, I have worked with your team like a couple of times where trying to retrieve information about for crimes or like things that happening in the neighborhood.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're involved in that, and again, yeah, Carlo, if you wanna, you know, highlight some examples, maybe.
yeah, I mean, one thing that I'm working on today, which is that, I mean, there's days where stuff can be critical, and then there's days where, you know, it's kind of calm. So you never know what the day's gonna be like, and today, I'm gonna jinx myself right now. Today's one of those calm days, so I now have a couple of computers that I'm preparing for, we've got a street crime command center that we're doing. So now I'm saying, hey, I'm gonna take the opportunity to work on these right now, because I don't know what's gonna happen come next week, right? You could have a police car that has an issue all of a sudden with the MDT that's in the car or whatnot. So for me, I always like being proactive. I always like, if there's something that I know is probably somewhere down the road that we can deal with this, or can I deal with it much sooner and therefore kind of get it off my plate? That's the way I always tend to operate and whatnot. Because in the role that Tim and I do, I don't know if it's fair to say for you or Ken, because you guys have the luxury in that they're not necessarily going to come to you first. It's like when they call fire, it's coming to us type of thing. And so I find that, and I'm not complaining here, I'm finding that our work, sometimes you could be working on something like, let's say, troubleshooting a problem with one of the police vehicles, and all of a sudden there's an emergency going on in the jail cell because a judge can't do his session with the prisoner. So now you have to stop exactly what you're doing, drop what you're doing, go to that immediately, right? So our job a lot of times is just you're prioritizing things, and you're kind of 10 things, you know, okay, I'm exaggerating, maybe like 5 things come your way, and you have to prioritize those 5 things, because those 5 issues to everyone is like 911. Even though you'll identify that, okay, this issue's not really that panicky, this one takes priority, right? But you want to let everybody know that you're going to kind of attend to their problems, their issues, and you try to do it in a timely manner. And if somebody's kind of panicking or freaking out, you try and want to calm them down and let them know that you're going to basically solve their problems. So they have to come on, right?
Not everyone is nice here, so.
Our job is, you never know what's gonna come at you from day to day, so it always kind of keeps you on your toes. And I love dealing with the computers, and then there's the people side of it, because you're dealing with different personalities. And you now, as being long here as I have, you recognize which people are more technical than other people, which people you need to hold their hands a bit more, which other people you can kind of steer them in the right direction and whatnot. And overall, the staff here is great.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, just to hammer on that point, I think the when are we not needed? It's kind of have our hands in everything. Where is an easy one to answer? We are located just down by the patrol pit there. We have a help desk office, and Kenny and myself, the office, are always open to unless we're in a meeting or something. But yeah, it's we're always approachable and available. And if not, we do have a phone number and email, just to help desk at any time. That's an easy one. And why is IT important to policing? Yeah, I think we got the idea from all the previous slides here, but again, more specifically, you can see some of the areas in which you know, technology is now a major part of police work. Communication, you know, email, phone, or text is down. Communication is pretty much cut off, right? It's difficult. we have Prime for all our records management software, right? All the police files go into this record management software system, right? Even forensics and investigative technologies are now a lot more prevalent, right? Everything's technology based. Surveillance, we have building surveillance all over here. Most businesses have surveillance now as well, so digital evidence, as Kenny mentioned, is very front and center now, right? So how do we manage that? How do we ensure our members have access to all those technologies, right? Tracking and GPS tracking and geolocation is very important for officer safety files, things like that, right? So even getting into more things that we're not necessarily intimately involved with, but it kind of has some technology type implications, data analytics and predictive policing, cybercrime. Everyone hears cybercrimes, right? How do we keep ourselves protected as well as a government entity, right? So, and a lot of information sharing now happens between the agencies, right? So, as you can see, IT is a big part of policing in general. So the how do we do it? What do we do well? So I think our existing technologies here we're pretty comfortable with. We do have a lot of experience on the team, luckily, so we're really aware of how most of the systems work here and can support it well. To Kenny's point, we've kind of worked tirelessly over the last few years to make sure we have redundancy in place and that we've understood how important these systems and the infrastructure is to policing, right? And we do a lot of work with our vendors to make sure that our hardware and our software are up to date and under support and maintenance, right? So, for example, if one of the servers goes down in our server room, we can call that vendor up and say, hey, can you send a replacement? We have this issue, and they can get right on it right away, so we have the least amount of downtime, right? Carla touched on a little bit. Again, it's a small agency, which is nice because everyone kind of knows each other by name, recognize faces, start to get to know people on a more personal level. So those interactions are very, more intimate and personal. So let's say it's easier to, again, not necessarily the technical ability of that person, but how important their issue might be, those kind of things, right? You start developing those relationships, which is good now. Again, we try to focus on a reliable client service for our members here, right? And again, being small, we are able to assist in other non-IT areas. Jacqueline touched on this a little bit. It's just not a large department. We don't have a staff member that's able to be responsible for each specialized area. So we do things like, physical security, electrical, things that are not necessarily traditionally an IT type support kind of mechanism, but we try and step in and assist where needed. And the nice thing about the size of our department is we are able to pivot to different technologies as new things emerge or strategies change. We can align our strategies with senior management and the police board a little more easily than some of the larger agencies like your VPDs or even RCMP, right? They have a lot of policies and red tape that you have to go through the approval levels. Luckily, at our size, we're able to kind of, if we need to change, we can make those changes in a more quicker manner. So some of the challenges we do face, and this, I think I could write the slide for any IT team that exists really. So the major things are staffing and budget, right? We are stretched a little bit thin, again, because we kind of have to cover everything. And in that sense, it feels like sometimes we're kind of a jack of all trades, a master of none. I know it's cliche, but it's kind of true. Like we do have some limited expertise in some specialized areas that we could be a little bit stronger in. We don't have a lot of database things on site per se, or luckily a lot of our applications are either hosted or don't need database management, but we don't really have a database administrator in-house. You know, application development, we don't have that kind of expertise either. And things like IT security, like you hear about in IT in general, IT security is a big hot topic. A lot of organizations have an IT security specialist, and we just don't have that right. We have to kind of make do with what we have. So it can be challenging, but sorry. And budget wise, again, capital projects can be difficult to budget for sometimes. We've had to sometimes spread it over a couple of years just to get enough budget to Kenny's point. We're trying to up our redundancy and uptime, so we have to buy 2 servers or 2 network switches, 2 firewalls. The numbers can get pretty high, so we have to try and work within those. And yeah, just again, there's only 4 of us here. We are busy a lot of the time, so it's hard to, even when we do get those capital projects and things like that, it's more, we can't really set aside time and say, okay, well, I'm only working on a project this time. So if somebody comes up and says, oh, I have an issue, we do have to drop everything sometimes and prioritize in that sense. So resourcing can be difficult. Yeah, that's kind of it. We went over a little bit. So sorry for rambling on, but does anyone have questions? Maybe they'll answer.
Two.
Drew?
Thanks very much. Great to hear what you guys are up to. So all those servers are physically located in this building?
Yes, we do have, yeah, that's correct.
Sorry, that's not true. We have some
Yes.
at City Hall.
Okay.
They're part of our second set of data. So if this place burned down or
Right.
collapsed, we at least have a copy of all of our, drive things at City Hall.
Cool. And then you just mentioned not having an IT security specialist. What kind of risk exposure does that leave us as an organization not having that?
There's definitely some risk involved in that. We've done a lot of work with other police agencies as well to get their stance and their policies and stuff, and we tried to adopt it as best we could. Our philosophy in general is kind of layers of security. So we've been able to implement tools that are layers. Like, we have 2 firewalls. We have next gen antivirus for the client sides. We've done a lot of we have an email spam protection system. Just kind of layers upon layers. In the IT world, it's tough because they always, I know a lot of this is marketing jargon, but it's kind of true. It's not a matter of if you'll get attacked or if you'll be exposed, it's kind of when.
Mm-hmm.
So we're definitely trying to mitigate that risk for sure. It would, I think, for myself, that's definitely a focus for me, to try and further mitigate those risks and at least be able to explain them to your management and police board in a better manner. So definitely look out for that. Hopefully we can put something together that will, I wouldn't say fully ease your minds, but at least recognize that we are thinking of those.
Great, thanks.
Can I add to that? Our security posture is, I would say, a little more beefier than your typical organization, even at City Hall, because we do have to adhere to the RCMP's national security. It's called the Secure Communication Policy. Every several years, we have to submit to them this really, really long and detailed and complex questionnaire that they're never happy with, describing what systems we have in place, what policies we have in place, how we're wired, how our firewalls configured, whether we're up to date on our security patches, whether we have out of date of support equipment. So we do have that kind of like a guiding document, if you will.
Great.
That makes us a little bit stronger than your typical organization.
Great. Thanks.
Anyone else? I think Drew got my question. Actually, you answered my one question about, I think as local governments, there's been a lot of local government attacks on ransomware attacks, mostly on local governments in Canada in the last 2 years. that's always a concern we have about how secure we are against that. But with your work also, I'm wondering about, like you've talked a little bit about redundancy you have around disaster preparedness, how this is an organization that's gonna have to be able to respond when everybody else is gone down because of some sort of regional disaster. And I just, like, is that somewhere you're feeling like, is that something you put a lot of work into? Is that something, and again, the other conversation is, what's your communication with the city around what they do on, or do you guys have completely separate systems, or do you guys share your systems with the city?
We do have separate systems. Part of it was the RCMP security kind of standards. The city doesn't necessarily meet those in certain criteria, so we need to separate at that point. In terms of disaster recovery, I know we were fortunate to be able to get space at the city hall in order to kind of host a disaster recovery type site. But in reality, I mean, it's 4 blocks down the street, so if something happens here, it's probably gonna happen there.
Yeah. Earthquake, we're all sorry.
Yeah, and this is kind of an issue for a lot of police agencies. It's been tricky because they do have, you know, hosting available out of region. There's a large disaster recovery center in Kamloops that I believe Prime uses. And a lot of the other 8 local agencies have tried to kind of put together something to make it more cost effective in order to be able to host something there, but it just, we've been kind of waiting. Our agency's not big enough to be able to allow for that kind of budget, so we're kind of waiting for, and I think BPD is spearheading one of these. They're trying to see, you know, can we co-locate a lot of our disaster recovery stuff in Kamloops together, if we all kind of pool our resources. So there's been thought put to it, but unfortunately, just the numbers are astronomical, so it hasn't gotten to the point where we can viably say, okay, let's move our disaster recovery to there. But we've definitely thought about it. So it's, yeah, again, at our size, it's hard to spearhead and be on the leading edge of that kind of thing. So we do, again, we communicate a lot with the other agencies. There's agencies that are our size, there's some bigger, some smaller. But we do get together on a quarterly basis now to discuss these kind of things. And luckily, we're not far off from the other. They have the same challenges that we do. So
yeah, I was gonna ask about that. Is there an opportunity to share resources with Fort Moody and Delta and those other,
for sure,
West Vancouver and those other municipal forces that are like ours, and sort of work together in that? Because RCMP, I know, are their own.
They are. In a way, yes, they are, but they do contribute to that committee as well. It's actually, it was kind of self-formed a couple of years ago, but more recently it's actually an official Prime committee now, where they host all the agencies that come in from a IT perspective. So it's very, those sessions are very strategy wise and just sharing common issues and things like that we're trying to tackle.
And I do want to emphasize that what we have is not a true disaster recovery center, right? What we have is a replication of our data, which means that if our building burned, the data is there, but that doesn't mean you can just take 4 computers and plug it in and off you go, right? It just means that we don't suffer catastrophic loss of data, right? It will require probably a couple of weeks or something like that at minimum to actually use what we have.
Right. And what's the Wi-Fi password? Just
We all want to know that.
There used to be a laminated piece of on top of that black box. I don't know where it went. Maybe people don't want you to know.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for that. It's good to know. Yeah, it's nice to meet the team, and yeah, it's good to hear about the work you do.
Oh, and thanks for getting us set up with email.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for getting us set up on email, yeah.
Thanks for letting me know I can't forward my email.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Thanks, Julie.
Thanks.
Okay,
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Do you have any now?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Just so the board knows, you see a couple of new faces here. I think maybe Jeff might not be soon. As the board knows, we've got some retirements that have happened. So on that side, Inspector Dudar now been gone for 3 weeks. This morning, he said it's the greatest 3 weeks of his life. I think he got his first pension check, that's why he said. Acting Inspector Sanjay Kumar is going to be in Trevor's position for, I think, for 6 weeks, right?
Until May 10th.
Yeah, so we're gonna be rotating that position.
Great.
Sanjay's permanent position is watch commander on one of the watches, so it's just getting an opportunity to do this. So Sanjay will be here for probably this and May, sorry, what did you say, June?
May 10th.
May 10th, so just this meeting. And Acting Inspector Jeff Scott. Jeff might be known to the board because he's been here a few times. He is on the admin side. Inspector Perry is on holiday, so Jeff is.
Great, thanks. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anybody have items they'd like to see pulled? Can we actually change the screen so I can see Patrick's?
Oh, pardon me.
Yeah. Is there anything that anyone needs pulled from the consent agenda?
Yeah, 2.7.
2.7,
2.5.
2.5.
Oh, where'd Drew go? Oh, there he is.
It disappeared.
I'd like to pull 2.3 just to ask a quick question. I don't see Patrick's hand up, so I'm assuming he's happy. So we have 2.3, 2.5, and 2.7 pulled. Can I get a motion to receive or to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda? Moved, seconded, all in favor, all opposed, carried. 2.3 statistics. I pulled this because, let me just look, the one big significant increase seems to be mental health calls. I don't know if that's an anomaly. I don't know if there's anything you can comment on that, whether this is an anomaly, whether this is a difference in how we're collecting them, whether there was a series of incidents or something, or, and I know there's a report on PACT and PACT referral. Are we referring to PACT? Are we getting referrals from PACT? Do you have any comments on what, it does seem a little bit larger than all the other sort of, it seemed like regularly monthly coming ups and downs.
Well, the other one is alcohol related, is the largest increase.
Yeah, alcohol went way up, 117%. The numbers aren't like massive. I think it's.
Yeah.
Anyways,
that's impaired traffic.
Yeah. I don't have any thing that I can point to in regards to why that number would be up. There could be a bunch of different variables with that. Sometimes we see, not necessarily on the mental health side, but the time of the year. I don't know that any more services have come into town or anything like that. It's just an ongoing issue, I guess, for the Lower Mainland in general, society probably even wider of these types of instances that are being downloaded on the police. I think that, and you talked about PAC, that's separate. But I know that we have been referring to PACT, and I know that PACT has on occasion had to refer things to us. I think that that's probably helping on our numbers, so it would be interesting what it would look like if we didn't have PACT. I think that all of us that were part of this journey, and I know that Mary, you were much more involved in the beginning part when you had another hat on. But I mean, I think this is a long-term play with PACT, right? And I think I'm taking this question and making it a little bit broader, making a statement on it, but I think what we need to do is we need to stay the course. And even though that these numbers are going up, and there's probably a million reasons why, we need to, at least from where I sit as a chief, we need to keep PACT going. Because I think where we're going to see the advantage is down the road. It's going to take some time. And it's going to take some money, and it's obviously going to take commitment from the city and government to support PACT to do this work. But that's when I think we'll see those numbers start coming down. It's not going to probably happen very quickly, unfortunately, but I think that's when we'll come down. But as far as your direct question about why that number's up, I can't give you a really good answer.
There's a lot going on in the world right now, and people can't afford to live.
So many things, right? I mean, there's so many pressures that folks are feeling, and so many other crises going on. That really impact us.
Yeah, I'm always careful to pull a single line out of these. These are month-to-month statistics that go up and down every month. But yeah, that was just one that stood out to me. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions or comments around stats? Alejandro.
I have one about downtown statistics. So if I look at like year to date, this year versus last year, I think that it's down. So wouldn't it be good for us to share that news story with people? Because I know that that we always hear about, crime is bad, but actually we go by the actual numbers. Wouldn't that be something that would support more the community and the police and?
We generally, I mean, this is a public document and we highlight and direct folks to this document specifically. We
But
have.
people look at Facebook, right? People don't look at like, if it's Facebook, it's true. So.
I'll take your word on that, because I'm not.
You know what I'm saying,
Yeah,
information that is.
We can certainly talk about the good news stories as well, and I think that both here, so we'll probably talk a little bit about communications. The other thing that we are doing, and Inspector Gosselin and her team have been doing it recently, is also meeting one-on-one with a lot of folks downtown to pass on this information and listen to the bad, but also talk about the good. And the mayor and I also had done that with another business owner. So, I mean, I think that we do get it out, but point taken, and we certainly will be looking at that for sure.
Just as a caution, if I can interrupt, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but this is police reported crimes that are counted here?
Right.
Yep,
And
so-
only, as you see, only a snapshot of something.
Yep, so there are non-police reported crimes that occur as well, so we have to be careful with the kind of messaging we throw around in light of that.
Yeah, and it's certainly something that we talk about. Sometimes, there's reported crime and there's perception of it. And so we have to address both of those things for sure.
And I also fear anytime emphasizing just a month-to-month change, these are monthly statistics. And, I always fear emphasizing a monthly reduction, we see that's significant because next month we might regress back to the mean, right?
Especially with the downtown broken out, there's small numbers. So
Exactly, yeah,
statistically-
exactly, especially.
Probably
small numbers.
statistically insignificant.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, 100% reduction in aggravated assault sounds great. It went from 1 to 0. That's not-
It's
so
not
that's-
statistically.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
But also, it's small, but we need national TV because how bad it is, right?
Yeah.
So yes, it looks like small.
Yeah, but we have to go to the news with like.
Yeah.
More fact-based versus like emotional-based, and some of these changes are, we can't say that they're statistically significant, that like, it's just a chance, right?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Can I get a motion to receive this report? Moved, seconded, all in favor, all opposed, carried. Thank you. 2.5 governance, Mary.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for this report. It's really good to have a baseline of understanding comms and the policy around it. I guess I think, and this will probably come out in the governance work we do, but it feels, I'm still not clear on, I guess maybe the question is, who develops the policy for comms? Is this operations or is this police board? Is it operations? Yeah, okay. So I guess then the other conversation is around the police board comms, which we haven't had that conversation. And Alejandro, perhaps that your comments can come forward in that kind of setting more appropriately, I guess. But I do think it's important for us to have that conversation because the comms are a bit different. And I guess we as police board have to be careful about not treading into the operations of comms. But also, I guess I would want to have some sort of agreement and alignment between police board comms and operation comms. I wouldn't want us to see us being kind of oppositional to each other. So I think that's important work for us to do.
Yeah, and Haley, as I talk around you, as you're sitting here.
I'm looking at you.
Yeah, I know.
I'm trying not to look at you.
But Haley's done a lot of work and actually provided me several reports on that topic. As we await the governance process to go through, I think that a lot of the work Haley's done will really help answer and bridge some of those gaps or those issues.
Yeah. The other comment and question I have is around about how we communicate something that occurs somewhere else, like on another, like say that it's school board or at city hall, and say school board or city hall wants to issue a press release and the police department wants to issue a press release and they're not exactly the same, or they tell a slightly different story. How do we manage that with our partners in the community?
Yeah, I liaise with my colleagues up at City Hall or with the communications professional at the school board.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon for partnership agencies to give one another a heads up, like an hour or so before a media release is shared with the public. Hey, this is my media release, just so you can prepare your team. And yeah, I think about my responsibilities in being accountable to the citizens of New Westminster in terms of safety. So I'm very much guided by that, and more often than not, my partnership agencies are supportive of what I put out. So yeah.
There has been very rarely, very rarely, I can think of maybe one, where there might have been a difference of opinion in regards to what should go out. So Haley will put together what she thinks. Ultimately, it'll come to me, sometimes the deputy chief, and then we will take basically the foundation of what is read in this report and take that into account, and we'll then make the ultimate decision will come from my office in regards to what we put out there. And like Haley said, that's very rare that there's a difference, but they can occur. And I will say that if that has ever occurred, there has usually been then a conversation at my level with maybe a colleague at whatever agency that is. And an understanding, and maybe ultimately at least an understanding of why we did it. We may not agree at the end of the day on exactly how that went, but at least that communication's open. I've never felt that if we've ever put out something that maybe the other agency or body didn't agree with, that we didn't at least have a respectful conversation and an understanding and left it, okay, we get your point and I get your point, and we did what we thought was best and we did.
And we'll only ever speak to the actions of NWPD staff, but we're very much duty bound to provide the residents with helpful, useful, and accurate public safety information.
Okay, I guess I'm interested in the police board having the conversation about comms as it relates to comms in the operational sense. Because I do want us to really understand those partnerships and to make sure that we are really taking into consideration all points of view when we put something out, because I think what the police department puts out is hugely important, as we all know. And I guess I just want to make sure that we all understand where it comes from.
I would say that we very, very rarely put out media releases that involve partnership agencies.
Right.
The odd time I'll reach out to the CN Rail Police or some of the railway police. The odd time I'll work in partnership with Metro Vancouver Transit Police. Sometimes the city, but I would say the majority of our media releases are about exclusively NWPD.
Yeah, I totally get that. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that report. I think it was really helpful and it'll be helpful for us in our work.
Yeah, and again, I think there's a distinction there between, I mean, this is all, it doesn't seem like there's any strategic comms or much strategic comms in here. This is about situational and event-based, and this is communicating about information about what's going on right now. Where I think there's a place for the police board to get involved in talking about our long-term strategic plans and things that we kind of like, that's a communications thing that's lacking frankly, because, you know, again, it's a police board level of communications that we have to have, and we haven't really thought about how to do that. And then there's, for lack of a better term, sort of political comms, I'll call it that. It's not really what it is. But for example, I get a phone call from Dan Fomano I'm writing a story about police boards and the governance change. And, you know, that's not operational at your level, right? That is a police board level thing that I have that conversation, but I don't really have any comms support in this seat doing that work because it's not really an operational issue. So that is something we have to talk about in the board. That's something we have to talk about through our governance on how we're going to resource myself or the following chair after me to make sure they have that support. And we still have that somewhat separation between operational work the police department is doing and the strategic work that the board is doing. So something that will come up, yes.
So much to come up.
So much to come up, much work to do, yes. Okay, any other questions or comments? This is a motion to receive,
So moved.
second. All in favor, all opposed, carried. Thanks, Haley. Heather, 2.7, financial update.
I don't know if this has been here before, if it's new, and I just haven't noticed it in the past. It says overtime ICBC, overtime movies. Is that overtime associated with like an ICBC case or
No,
with
it's
movies?
the,
that are filming
a
here?
couple times a year, ICBC will provide a grant for us to go out and do additional, road checks that probably Sanjay can speak to the specifics of what happens. So then we just, it gets coded to that specific line item and then we recover it from ICBC.
And then what about the
For the
movies one?
The movies is gonna be anything that's done, with the city. So there is a set cost depending on what is used, vehicles or, officers. So that is for filming in and around New Westminster.
And do we do cost recovery for that as well?
100%.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to check.
Yeah, so all of those have a recovery.
Like 105%.
I think sometimes in the budget, what would be nice is, like, it just goes into third-party cost
Yeah.
recovery, and we have no clue where that cost recovery is coming from. So it would be nice to have it broken out a little bit, so that we can actually, like, know that, oh, like, that movie's cost us
Yeah.
110, but we recovered 130, so it's
Yeah.
revenue genuine.
So it all goes into the same GL code, but
Yeah.
we have a full tracking sheet, as you now know manually. But so that is very easy information for me to pull out and some really good news stories this year with some of the grants.
Yeah, because it looks like we made a lot more money than we expected, so we're like good for our budget, but it's just, I was curious where that was coming from.
Mary?
Since you pulled it, I have a quick question. Where does the police board expenses
The police
come
board
from?
expenses are within there.
Is it volunteer and community engagement?
So
What's
that
it
is-
called?
It's its own business unit. We haven't broken
Oh.
out for board reports that we don't typically show it by business unit. But we
Should
certainly
we?
can. We can.
Governance discussion, I suppose.
So there'll be,
Because-
it depending on what classification it is, like, so if it was conferences, it goes to the conference line, but it's posted to the police board business unit.
Okay, but it's just not reflected. It's in here, but
It's in
it's
here,
not
yeah.
pulled out. It's,
Yeah.
it's grouped into something
Yeah,
else.
this is the whole police
Got it.
budget, all
Okay.
business units, patrol
Everything,
to
but it's just
everything,
not, okay.
But
Would
we
be,
could-
would be good to know what it looked like.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
If I can add just one more.
As you say, is that released in our, do we do a SOFI every year that separates out police board expenses separate from other expenses within the department?
The SOFI report is all part of the financial statements.
Yeah.
So it would be within there. I'm just trying to think back. I know civilian staff is within the SOFI, foreign staff is not. I don't know where board members sit.
Okay.
I don't think previously it probably was in the SOFI because there wasn't an honoraria. But
Right.
that's probably a good question to.
That's why something to fall, sorry, statement of financial information.
The police boards don't fall into that.
All right. Okay, so police boards aren't subject to SOFI legislation.
Correct.
There you go.
However, as in our interest of being a transparent operation, we might want to think about how we separate and report out on police board costs and expenses, just for public
Just like any
oversight.
other business unit.
Yeah, maybe get us back on that at some point about how we can separate that out so that the board has some transparency about how.
We budget by business unit
Yeah.
and we post by business unit, so I definitely, we see that information internally.
Great.
There's just been some talk about grants, good news stories. I just want the board to know that we will, they weren't keeping this. Didn't buy that. We're all doing, maybe in May, hopefully I can do a report on some really great work that the department's done, but huge shout outs to the provincial and federal government on some significant funds that they've provided us that really helping us a lot, so.
Yeah, that would be a good summary report actually to bring to the board
That
just
would be
to.
great.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions on the financial update, quarterly update? Seeing none. Can we get a motion to receive? Second, all in favor, all opposed, carried. Thank you, Jackie. Which brings us to ongoing business, appointment of BCAPB representative. Patrick, did you have a comment on this? It says Patrick Lalonde on my agenda next to it.
Yeah, so as you might remember, Drew stepped out of the role and I said I'd take it on in the interim. The interim has elapsed. So my
That's kind of a motion to appoint Patrick on a more permanent basis.
Well, I'm getting there. So my teaching schedule ramps up in the summer and then continues in the fall. It's not overly burdensome serving on this body, and all meetings are held on Zoom, so it's not like I have to travel to Victoria or anything to get the job done. But I can continue in the role for a while if needed. But you know, committee work comes up, and I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to get involved in a committee because of the time limitations that's coming up to my schedule the next 8 months. And so Drew did this work in the past. Drew's out. He's absolved from responsibility. But if anyone else is interested, feel free to throw out your name. But if not, like I said, I'll continue in the interim.
Can I get a motion to appoint? Seconded. In the interim anyway, yeah, I mean, again, I'll just comment on that. We do have a new police board member joining soon, hopefully, to fill our one vacancy. And there may be, due to government changes, some changes in our governance of the police board. So it'd be great if you could cover that the interim. And at least as we go through this governance things, that we can have a bit of a discussion about our roles as police board members. And thank you for volunteering to cover that space for us.
Yep.
All in favor? All opposed? Only Patrick opposed? It is near unanimous.
Fake opposed. I'm okay with it.
You see, okay, so Patrick is appointed. Thank you. There is no new business in the open agenda, so that will be the end of our open agenda. Thank you all. We ran a little long, but we had those good presentations from staff, so I appreciate that. So I will ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Moved, seconded, all in favor, all opposed, carried. And we will take a 5-minute break to get our IT figured out before we go into our in-camera meeting.